Clemencia, are you ready?
Yes.
Now, I think we are ready to start, and I think those joining in are looking forward to hearing your presentation, and they were just able to enjoy you being mindful um, and practicing your meditation. So hereby, with that being said, I would like to formally welcome everyone. Good afternoon to the Aruba Post Corona, A Better Normal. This has been a series of Zoom presentations organized by the University of Aruba and hosted by the Center for Lifelong Learning. And myself, I am Deborah Alexander. I'm the coordinator for the Center for Lifelong Learning for the past 10 years, actually, and I've been doing this with lots of pleasure. So before we start, I would just like to make some small remarks. So for you not to think that you're the only one in this presentation, because it's a Zoom webinar, so you will see myself and the presenter, but you won't see those who are also logging in the Zoom presentation. I just saw we already had 20 persons registered, and I know that the numbers are going to increase during the process. I saw that some of you were already making use of the chat box to let us know who you are and where you're checking in with. And Clemencia, there was a special shout out for you from Marilyn Robb, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. So I hope that's, that makes you feel good. So I encourage others to, just type your name and where you're checking in from. So just keep it coming. For your questions, please do that separately or post these separately in the Q&A box. And your questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. Internet, I keep on repeating it. You just never know, it's unreliable at times, but just should it fall out, I would recommend that you rejoin by using the link, and if not, patiently wait until it reconnects. And last but not least, at the end of the presentation, once you've clicked and closed your browser, you'll get a pop-up asking you to fill in our evaluation form. And I please ask that you do that we can use your feedback to improve our next webinars and future ones, long we're doing it via Zoom. So thank you very much for that. So today's topic, what's it gonna be? A very nice one. How to be resilient in times of monumental change. This is, by the way, topic number 9, as you see, of the series, based on the donut economic model. And we have as presenter, Miss Clemencia Eugene. I think many of you might have seen her face in the media these days, being an advocate for very important and social matter that's taking place these days. But next to that, she is the lecturer at the University of Aruba. She teaches at the Faculty of Arts and Science in the Department of Social Work and Development. She has a clinical social work background and is a longtime practitioner of mindfulness. That's why we were able to enjoy you being mindful and preparing for this presentation, Clemencia. She's also a PhD candidate focusing on a national research with as theme, Child Maltreatment in Aruba, a Human Development Perspective. Having said that, Clemencia, I would like to give this Zoom presentation over to you.
Thank you, Deborah, for inviting me to participate in the Center for Lifelong Learning series of conversations on Aruba post-COVID-19. My gratitude to all who have chosen to share this space with us to have a conversation about stress and resilience. The flow of my presentation will begin by unpacking stress and resilience, following which we will discuss what is the role of resilience within the donut economics, which is the theoretical framework we have been using for those series of sessions. Then I will share the findings of a research we did in collaboration with the Center for Lifelong Learning in preparing for this conversation on COVID-19, impact on perceived stress and resilience on Aruba. Then we will explore what is the better normal for Aruba post-COVID-19 And how do we cultivate resilience within the context of that better normal? We will terminate our conversation with some summary reflections, and then you will be invited to send your comments, your reflections, and ask your questions. I wish to start by engaging you right away in the conversation by having you to answer this question through a poll. And the question is, which of the following do you think is the major cause of most diseases today? Is it diet or stress, poverty, drug use and abuse? Is it environmental factors or a lack of physical exercise? Deborah, can we do the poll now?
Yes, we can. And I just see there's something a bit different, Clemencia, but I will still do the poll as we originally had it. So here was the questions with a bit different of answers.
Oh.
Yes.
You let me know when you're going to close the poll, Deborah?
Yes, I will do, Clemencia. Sharing the results.
Okay, so that's it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so the majority has responded to stress as the main cause of diseases today. Wow. I concur with the majority that it is, in fact, stress. Most psychologists, I can still see the poll on the screen. Is that okay? You'll take care of that, Deborah?
You just need to click it close, Clemencia.
Oh,
Remember?
I need to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
In the corner.
Okay, I think I've got it now.
Yes.
Okay, so most psychologists defined stress as your body and mind response or reaction to a real or imagined threat, event, or change. World Health Organization informs that the top 3 global causes of death are cardiovascular disease, stroke, and lung disease. One of the main causes of these diseases is stress. Stress is also considered to be one of the many factors contributing to mental health disorders such as depression and anxiety. And this is where my point of departure is for this conversation, that we need to pay serious attention to stress. We all experience stress in our lives. At this moment, we are all confronted with 2 hyper-globalized, stressful, and traumatic events, the Black Lives Matter and COVID-19. And so I argue in this presentation that if stress is one of the main causes of the top 3 causes of death and mental health disorders, and if stress is influenced by our perceptions or by our thoughts, and if our thoughts are not fixed, therefore, it means that we can change them. And so we can cultivate a repertoire of skills to overcome stress and build our resilience, and so enjoy a happier, healthier, and longer lives. With that said, the goal of my presentation is to share with you a repertoire of skills to cultivate resilience and reduce and manage stress in your life during this time of global monumental change and become healthier and happier. What is resilience? It is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Let's look at this picture. What it denotes is that amidst our pain, our cuts, our bruises, our trauma, the violence, the hardships we encounter, still there is a sunflower. We can still grow. And so that is what resilience is. The term comes from the Latin word resilio, which means to jump back. In other words, resilience is bouncing back from difficult circumstances. And every time we bounce back, the aim is to bounce higher and higher and higher. And so resilience allows us to build our inner resources towards positive growth or post-traumatic growth. And so resilience is really being able to survive, not only on the worst day of our lives, but to thrive all the days of our lives. How then can we create and recreate our lives for a better normal and remain resilient and benefit from positive growth after a stressful or traumatic event in our lives? Post-traumatic growth is a theory that explains the kind of transformation following a traumatic event in our lives. It was developed by psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence. So consider, for example, we are living our normal life, and here comes a trauma or a stressful event, usually characterized with severe suffering and pain, then challenges, and then we go deep down the valley, experiencing spiritual and emotional death. But we live with the hope that things will get better, and so we can transform our lives. It is possible that we may be fixated for the rest of our lives at the traumatic event, or stuck at the suffering, or forever in the valley. But resilience allows us to transform our lives, meaning we become mature, we find purpose and meaning in our lives. I'll give you an example. In 1985, Aruba experienced the closure of the oil refinery. Many individuals, families, and the economy suffered tremendously. But guess what? We were able to transform this economy, albeit before COVID, to a thriving tourist industry. That is an example of post-traumatic growth at the macro level. But even at the individual level, we can experience post-traumatic growth. I'll give you an example. Consider Nelson Mandela. After 27 years of incarceration, he emerged and transformed his life to becoming the first Black South African president. That is resilience. What does resilience have to do with the donut economics? The donut economics is a framework to help us meet the needs of all within the means of the planet. The framework posits that in order for humanity to thrive, we need a solid social foundation consisting of elements such as water, food, health, gender equality, education, and also resilience. At the same level of all those critical domains. So with resilience, we are able to direct our lives towards the 21st century and achieve all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. It is imperative that we build our inner resources of resilience. And the question may still remain, why is this so? It is so because if we are not resilient, we are doomed to live a life of stress with all its associated diseases and poor mental health. And now I'll share with you a little bit about the findings of the research we did. We used two instruments, the perceived stress scale and the brief resilience scale. Before I share the results, I'm just curious to know how many of you who are here with us really participated in the survey. Can we do a quick poll, Deborah? Okay, so we have, is that it, Deborah, now? So
Yes,
we have,
compliments, yeah.
great, so we have 48% of the participants did the survey and the remaining 52 did not. I really wish to thank you for contributing. And now I am so pleased to share with you the findings. 237 persons participated in the survey, and the majority was between the age group of 45 to 54. The majority were female, 73%. 40% had children younger than 18 years old, and 31 had children over the age of 18. A large majority, 71%, reported that their job and family income were affected by COVID-19. And a minority of 15% reported that they had a family member or a close person infected by the virus. We asked respondents to provide one word that epitomizes their experiences with COVID-19, and we did a word cloud. And you could see the word that jumps out is stressful, characterized by other similar terminologies like uncertainty, overwhelmed, chaos, horrific. But amidst the stressful experiences, we see the word blessed, which is a characteristic feature of resilience, and other words like calm, satisfied, flexible, and positive. The perceived stress scale revealed that a large majority of the respondents described their experiences as moderate stress at 62%. With regard to the brief resilience scale, the majority of the respondents reported normal resilience at 67%. This means that respondents already have a repertoire of skills to cultivate their resilience in times of hardships. We did a cross-tab analysis to look at the relationship between stress, resilience, and gender. What did we find? That women express greater levels of perceived stress and are at the same time more resilient compared to the men who participated in the survey. We also asked respondents to just write any comments they wanted at the end of the survey. And we did a content analysis, and two themes emerged: stressful and positive growth. The narratives for stressful were things like being fearful, suffering, vicarious grieving, worsening of mental health issues. Working from home was perceived as complex and burdensome, and there were many narratives about being worried about the economy and the second wave. Positive growth narratives revolve around people being satisfied with the manner in which the government of Aruba responded to the virus. People had a reflective attitude. There was a return to faith and spirituality, a greater appreciation of health, and people enjoyed working from home and family time. So the respondents, it would seem, naturally found ways to cope and are capable of being resilient. That is good news. Knowing how to make lemonade when life gives you lemons, especially the women. So where are we now? The virus has faded away. Globally, the virus is still present. The number of infections are being maintained at acceptable levels. In some countries, in other countries, increasing. There is a search for vaccines and anticipating a second wave. Where are we now in the better normal context in Aruba? That is characterized by physical distancing, Aruba health and happiness code, having to wear masks. Some of us are still working from home and having to abide with the health sanitation protocols. And border controls really seems to be taking away our luxury to travel with the holidays coming up. However, how can we use that context to cultivate resilience and positive growth and post-traumatic growth? We may bring along with us to the better normal context the same coping strategies, the same thoughts and feelings and behaviors with the fear we had, mental health worsening, uncertainty, resistance, and even anxiety. The mega question is, how can we have hope to recreate our lives for a better normal lifestyle that will make us bounce back, transform our lives with positive growth? I would like to share with you an eclectic blend of 8 skills to cultivate resilience. These 8 skills are inspired by some of my favorite teachers, such as Rick Hansen, who has done extraordinary work in the area of resilience. Also Bizel with his book, The Body Keeps the Score. The skills are also inspired by Martin Seligman, who is a positive psychologist, and one of the main concepts in his theoretical perspective is that of human flourishing, and an invitation to focus on what is right with you. Focus on strengths and virtues that enables individuals, communities, and organizations to thrive. And also John Kabat-Singh's work on mindfulness, some of which he borrowed from the Buddhist tradition. Mindfulness he defined as paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And the emphasis in mindfulness is placed on the breath to support us in cultivating present moment awareness. And so strengthening the brain network, which is our prefrontal cortex, responsible for regulating positive emotions. And so silence the amygdala, which is the part of the brain responsible for those negative emotions that generates our stress responses in difficult situations. The first skill I wish to share with you is prayer and spirituality. Oftentimes when we are encountering hardships or a very stressful situation, we find ourselves in an existential crisis, asking ourselves existential questions like, what is the meaning of death? What is the meaning of suffering? What is the meaning of life? What is the meaning of love? And so we find a sense of hope and meaning in life that allows us to go on through our connection to a higher power, our connection with the divine, through meditation and prayer, and that gives us hope. For example, I'm a Catholic Christian, and oftentimes when I encounter hardships, I focus on the teachings from my greatest spiritual teacher, and one of my favorite books, the Holy Bible. One of my favorite quotes I often rely on for support to make me strong and give me hope that I will survive, I could bounce back, I can overcome. And that is Psalm 23. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. That gives me hope that all is well. Everything is working out for my highest good. And out of this situation, only good can come. The second skill is physical exercise and a healthy lifestyle. The invitation here is to get involved and make sure that you try to do physical and regular exercise. Engage in healthy eating, adequate rest and sleep. Now, maybe you may not be able to afford the monthly subscription of going to the gym, but guess what? You can invest in a good pair of sneakers and go walking freely on Linear Park, and so enjoy the benefits of physical exercise and a healthy lifestyle. The third skill is that of social connection. A research was done by Bonnie Ware with terminally ill patients and older persons, and she asked them, what are the top regrets of the dying? One of the top 5 regrets were, I wish I had stayed in touch with friends. And so we are social beings by nature. And so we are encouraged to ensure that we remain connected with family and friends and community through volunteerism. Research shows that even connection with an animal, a pet, or a fish helps to reduce loneliness and stress, and even remaining in contact with friends through the social media, especially Facebook. The 4th offering I wish to share with you is optimism, where we can see difficult times as temporary and not permanent. Challenge our pessimistic or negative thoughts with the use of language. If we change our thoughts, we change our brain, we change our experiences, we change our destiny, we change our reality. How can you use language in order to build your resilience? I'll give you a few examples. Instead of saying, I will always be sad, how about, I feel sad today? Instead of saying, I had a bad day at work today, how about, I had a character building day? So this is how we can change our thoughts. One thing I know for sure is that what we focus on expands. So if we keep harboring those negative thoughts, this is what endures, really, this is what has us to suffer and to increase the stress levels in our lives. So look at things the way they are and not worse. The 5th is to express it. Write about the difficult experiences and emotions. Name it, label it. James from the University of Texas gives us some clear guidelines as to how we can do that, supported by his research. 1, you write about the experience for about 15 minutes for 3 to 4 consecutive days. If you run out of things to write, go back and rewrite what you had already written. Express your deepest feelings and thoughts. Express them with as if it was happening right at this current moment, and then explore what you write. And as you go through this inquiry, you could ask yourself a few questions. What about this is upsetting me? What do I need to do to feel better? How can I soothe myself? And what is there for me to learn? I'll tell you what, when you practice that and you ask yourself those questions, the answer is right where the question comes from, which is from the heart, where the pain and the hardship resides. The 6th offering is acceptance and compassion. I'll share with you a case study. A work colleague died. I'm sorry, not the work colleague died. The father of the colleague died. And as friends, we all wanted to go to visit her, to cheer her up. And she's telling me the story. One friend said to her, you have so much to be grateful for. At least you still have your life. Another friend visited and said to her, this could have been so much worse. At least you still have your mother. And the third friend said, I am so sorry to know that a terrible thing has happened. You lost your father from the terrible sea cancer. Which one do you think helped her to accept and acknowledge her stressful situation? It's the third one, because she felt seen, she felt heard, she felt that her pain and her suffering were acknowledged, and that helped her to accept the situation for what it is. So when we do have a hardship or a stressful situation, the skill is to put out the welcome mat for it with open curiosity and kindness, and kind of have like a wise relationship with the experience. Avoid resisting the situation or hiding it. You know why? Because the body remembers, the heart remembers, the brain remembers. So avoid hiding the situation and learn to accept it for what it is. And then you could move to the next stage of offering yourself some self-compassion by doing a metta or a self-compassion meditation. The seventh offering is gratitude. Robert Emmons and Michael from the University of California and the University of Miami conducted a research where they divided the respondents into three groups. One group, they asked to record every day 5 things they are grateful for. The second group, to record every day 5 hassles of the day. And the third group, they asked to record any 5 events of the day. The group that recorded things they are grateful for reported feeling healthier, happier, the immune system improved, they made less visits to the family physician, and they were engaged in more pro-social behaviors. And according to Oprah, if you keep complaining and focusing about the things you do not have, you will never have enough, and abundance will never come your way. So let us really kind of begin to unfold in our daily life a spirit of gratitude. You may not be able to keep a journal, which will help you to shift the focus of your life to the extent that you're able to feel better about things in your life. But gratitude goes a long way to helping your brain, to train your brain, to tame your brain, to look for positive experiences. So here's something else you can do. From time to time, when you have a good experience, stay with the experience, rest with the experience by taking a few breaths. Allow the experience to be encoded in your brain cells to build your inner resources. The more aspect of the experience you allow to come to your present moment awareness, the more lasting impact it has. So when life gives you lemons, you have a myriad of positive experiences to rely on to give you hope that you are enough. You have the capacity to bounce back. You know what happiness looks like, what it feels like. You know about positive growth, and that could really help you succumb the hardship. The final one is to be present. Through mindfulness, both the formal and informal practices, it allows you to create space, to make space, to be in the present moment with what is happening right here, right now. Because if not, we find ourselves being stuck in the past, feeling guilty, or already in the future, feeling worried and anxious. But the now is all we have. This is the only moment we will ever have. So why not try to be in the now and be present? And here are some of the benefits of mindfulness. It relieves chronic pain, it reduces anxiety, decreases stress, it calms the body, it helps to integrate emotions, and it also helps us to resolve childhood trauma or any present day traumatic experiences. So in closing, we've discussed how COVID-19 is a traumatic stressor and how stress is dependent on our perceptions and our thoughts. And then we need to strive to be resilient in order to experience transformation of our lives towards positive growth and post-traumatic growth. So I invite you to just reflect on those following questions. What is there for you to learn from COVID-19? What has been your positive growth? And how can you cultivate resilience? I will just remind you of the 8 skills. I prefer to call them 8 offerings or 8 invitations, and see which one that you perhaps need to work on. So to summarize, the findings of the survey we did reported that the majority of the respondents experienced moderate levels of stress and normal resilience, and that women reported higher levels of perceived stress and were more resilient. It would seem that as human beings, we have a natural capacity to bounce back. The invitation is to be more conscious of your innate capacity to manage stress and hardships in your life. I have provided 8 offerings, 8 skills to empower you to be deliberate in working towards positive growth or post-traumatic growth, to take control of your life. And with every hardship life throws at you, ask yourself the question, what is there for me to learn? How can I grow? And do not let any challenge in your life go to waste. Look out for the transformation. Look out for the possible positive growth. Look out for the post-traumatic growth. I wish to end finally with a call for action. And I invite you to take this poll. And the question is to think about a stressful situation you are going through at this moment. And which of the following resiliency skills you need to cultivate for positive growth or post-traumatic growth? Is it prayer and spirituality? Is it physical exercise and healthy lifestyle? Is it social connection? Is it optimism? Do you have to express it, name it, label it? Is it acceptance and compassion? Is it gratitude? And I don't see mindful there. Oh, what happened to mindful? I think, Deborah, we forgot one of them.
Could be.
And this is rather unfortunate. Okay, so do we end the poll now?
Yes, here are the results.
So 19% reported prayer and spirituality. 31% said they need to work on physical exercise and healthy lifestyle. Yeah, you go. Buy this good pair of sneakers. Social connection, nobody needs social connection. Okay. Optimism, 6%. Express it, 13%. And 13% also need to accept the hardship they're going through and offer themselves some self-compassion. And 2% gratitude. And might I say, everybody else, I choose for you to be present and to be mindful. So herein lies my presentation. I thank you for sharing this space with us. I wish you well on your journey to resilience. And if there's one thing I invite you to take away, life will always throw things at you, but try to be resilient and get something out of it. Get some positive growth out of it. I thank you, and maybe we could now have some questions and some comments and your reflection.
Thank you very much, Clemencia, for that interesting presentation, as always. I had not expected otherwise. I just had, yes, thank you. And we'll go over to the questions. And I saw that we had 2 already, and I'll encourage everyone else to, keep on posing their questions. But Clemencia, I just had a quick question for you. I saw you in your research, you mentioned women tend to be stressors, but in larger quantities. I think it was 70-something%. And at the other side, we're a bit more resilient. What's up with that?
When the going gets tough, I think women are tougher than the men. But I mean, let's look at it in a more serious light. I think when you look at women, we tend to engage in more self-development activities. We will go to counseling, we'll visit a psychologist. Information that I have received from Socially Zakon, they have more women accessing the services, coming and seeking for help to build the resilience, to help, solve the hardships and the problems. So that's one. At the maternal level, I'm beginning to think, Deborah, perhaps because of our maternal nature, we endure pain and suffering. And I think childbearing is a post-traumatic growth, come to think about it. I mean, there's so much pain involved, there's so much suffering. And at the end, there is such a beautiful human being that comes out of it. And then because of our maternal instinct, we tend to feel a greater sense of responsibility that we need to take care of ourselves in order to be there for our children and to provide them the best. And I'm also thinking in terms of biology. I was reading, in preparing for this research, something came up that women, because of our estrogen hormone, that allows us to keep our immune system stronger and to keep diseases at bay. So, but it's something that perhaps we need to explore further, but that would be my response. Okay. That we tend to take life seriously. We take care of our bodies more seriously compared to men. We take less risk.
That's true. Thank you very much for that, Clemente. Now, let me go over to the first question. They said, great presentation. Thank you again, it confirms. Do you feel there is a place in education, including higher education, as well as in the workplace, to help build capacity in learning to become more resilient? And if yes, what advice do you have for practical implementation of these learning dimensions in education and the workplace? I'll repeat. First part, half of the question is, do you feel there is place in education, including higher education, as well as in the workplace, to help build capacity in learning to become more resilient?
The answer is a categorical yes. I think in our education system, especially in the primary school system, it is my view that we focus a lot on academics, but we don't focus enough on life skills. So I think we definitely need to, in education, begin to empower our children, both in primary schools and in higher education. But higher education is a little too late. We need to start from kindergarten to empower our children. So the question is, how and what are some concrete skills?
Yes.
I would say introduce mindfulness in schools. And there is a plethora of research that shows that mindfulness is beginning to infiltrate so many domains of life, including in schools. Because what we do, we begin to train our brain to respond to stresses. And when we do that, we are building our immune system. And when we train our brain to cope with stresses, what happens also, it helps us to have better relationships, especially interpersonal relationships. It helps us also to problem solve. It helps us also in looking at things from different perspectives. So I think that's one way we could do it. Also, problem-solving skills, conflict management skills, all these are resilient skills. So instead of fighting and being aggressive and being loud or being violent, nonviolent communication is another technique that is part of resiliency that could be used in the education system. And the same for the workplace. Mindfulness is also in the workplace. So for example, Google, mindfulness is integrated in Google. There is a chapel in every floor in the building, and every meeting begins by just being still. And then people are able to listen with each other, they're able to be more creative and better ideas, greater ideas, better interpersonal relationships. And that really helps us, to cope and manage with hardships. And oftentimes in organizations, we have problems with communication, interpersonal communication. Mindfulness really helps. to improve interpersonal communication. And in so doing, it helps to build resiliency. How about encouraging, when we begin a meeting, have everyone to share one thing they are grateful for before we talk about the problems in the organization? You know what I mean? So I would say yes, all those skills can be brought into the workplace and in education.
Thank you for that, Clemencia. Now, we have a few more questions. The next would be, can we help people that have lost their job and have no income to feed their family with resiliency, or is it more a question of survival? So can we help people that have lost their job and have no income to feed their family with resiliency, or is it more a question of survival?
I think it's a combination of both. But resiliency would tell you, okay, you've lost your job, but don't stay home and complain and moan and complain. Do something about it. Get up, ask for assistance. There are some stimulus packages that the government has made available. Don't be ashamed or afraid or embarrassed to ask the neighbor, to ask friends and families for support. I know, for example, City Aruba had some assistance available for people. So don't stay and complain with shame and blame, but get up and do something about it. So that's one thing we need to do. And yes, it is about survival, but then it's part of the bouncing back. It's part of the bouncing back. And the important thing is, again, I go back to thinking about what is it that I'm grateful for. So while you may have lost your job, think about the sunshine. Maybe you have children, maybe you have families, maybe you have a home, maybe you have other resources. So it's a matter of trying to find out what is it that I could be grateful for. And perhaps instead of staying home, how about going for a walk and get some kind of new energy, new stimulus, into your body, getting out. So all those skills can really help to manage and to cope with the fact that you are unemployed.
Thank you. Next question. So thank you for sharing your results. They say very interesting indeed. I was wondering whether in the setup of your questionnaire, consideration was taken of possible gender stereotypes that may influence the way in which men and women express themselves. For example, men expected to be more self-reliant and women allowed to be more emotional. So basically, I'm curious to know how you worked around this.
That's a very interesting question. We use the perceived stress scale, which is a highly validated and creditable instrument for measuring stress. And so I don't think it has any kind of bias towards gender, whether male or female. And the questions are very, if I may share some of the questions, for example, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? How often have you felt nervous or stressed? How often have you felt confident about your ability to handle your personal problems? So the questions are very open questions, and it's not gender specific at all. So I think it's a valid questionnaire that we use, and the same for resilience.
Okay, thank you. The same person continues to ask, I'm also curious if you also looked into the types of jobs that respondents have, and if so, if you observed a trend between stress levels and certain types of jobs.
No, we didn't ask any question about the type of employment or occupation. It was just a question that, was your job or family income impacted as a result of COVID-19? So we didn't go into the specific types of occupation. And so we couldn't do any sort of correlations in terms of the type of job and which one was deemed to be more stressful than the other.
Okay.
But that would have been a nice question to figure out whether the stresses were induced by a particular type of occupation.
Okay. I never know. Next research. You presented during the presentation, you presented several of the books that inspired you. Do you have other suggestions for books is another question. So can you suggest a few other books?
There are so many books. My favorite ones would be those by John Kabat-Zinn, especially Wherever You Are, There You Go. I would recommend books by, there is this one I have right here, which I got for my birthday, by Lisa Williams, Abundance Now, which is how you could create abundance in your life. There is, and she has some other books as well. Deepak Chopra is another favorite author that I would recommend. Then we have Daniel Siegel has some books on mindfulness, on how to manage stress. I'm thinking of also some books by Wayne Dyer, especially the one he wrote about your erroneous zones, that really help you to kind of reconsider some of the belief systems that we have that keeps us stuck and keep us with those old attitudes that do not build resilience, but really gets us stuck in past experiences. So this would be some. Also, Louise Hay has some very interesting books that are all geared towards self-development. So there are quite a few books.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing those. I'm sure they will appreciate. So this is a very interesting one. How were you able to do exercise throughout the COVID lockdown? And how did you find time for all your roles?
Fantastic. You know what I did? I discovered some YouTube videos on low impact aerobics. So I would do that right there in the house, and it was very, very interesting. And you could do it at your own pace. You could do it as many times as you wanted. So this is what I did. I was doing my basic aerobics, right there using YouTube video. I started Tai Chi, but I didn't continue. But I was doing my aerobics just using YouTube video at home. And what was the other part of the question?
Oh no, so how did you, let's see, so how did you go through and how did you find time for all your roles?
Oh, how did I find time for my roles? I must admit that I enjoyed working from home during COVID-19. I was able to deepen my practice with mindfulness. I found I had more time to just drop in and do my practice. My house is designed in such a way that I have chairs in different locations that when I walk, they just beckon me to call and just to sit down and to stop. And I had a routine. I continue to wake up early in the morning. I won't tell you what time I wake up in the morning. And then I would do my meditation. I would do my work and find some time to cook. I had lots of meals with my daughter. And in the evening, the truth be told, I did about 3 to 4 meditations per day.
Oh, wow.
Something I don't have time to do when I work in the office. So
thank you.
I'll tell you one thing, practicing mindfulness, I find that time becomes in abundance. People often say they don't have time and they don't have time, but engaging in a life of meditation, somehow you have more time because you're able to don't multitask, do one thing at a time, do it well, finish it, and then move on to the next task. So yeah.
Thank you for that advice, Clem. And I think on that note, we will round up this very interesting presentation from Clemencia, becoming resilient in time of monumental change. Thank you, Clemencia, for this wonderful presentation, for being here. But I also want to thank the 30 plus persons that zoomed in with us today, and I'm sure there were more, but I saw at a certain point that we were just heading up in numbers. Thank you for having been part of another very interesting Zoom presentation within the Aruba Post Corona A Better Normal, and I look forward to seeing you next week at another very interesting topic. So have a wonderful evening further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, Deborah.
Bye.